Hello and welcome to the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm Australian today. It seems I'm alone. This was a scheduling conflict thing, but it was about to happen eventually. I'm gonna be here alone, and I figured I'm gonna decide on a topic that I probably couldn't find anyone to talk about with anyways, but it's near and dear to me, and the Arrowverse ended. Now, I guess, first of all, what is the Arrowverse? The Arrowverse is a connected universe of TV stories, starting with Arrow in 2012. Then, of course, The Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And so this week, the final episode of The Flash aired, marking the end of the Arrowverse. And I've been watching this from virtually the beginning. I think I started watching Arrow when it first aired in Germany, which was probably not too long after it first aired in the US. Arrow, I believe, started in 2012. I wanted to look this up before I start, but I didn't. But I'm pretty sure it was 2012. And so I started watching this 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. Probably more like 2013, but that still means that I've been keeping up with the Arrowverse for a decade now, and now it's over. That's interesting, and I kind of wanted to talk about that. So, first of all, it's kind of interesting to mention that again, a decade, right? I'm turning 25 this year, so I was at best 15 when I started watching this. So obviously it's been a substantial part of my life in a way. I mean, obviously, it's been in my life for a substantial part of it, I guess, is a better way to say that. And the Arrowverse ending, it was kind of a weird thing for me because it, the cliche, right? It didn't end with a bang, it ended with a whimper. It seemed like it was winding down ever since Crisis on Infinite Earths, which, I mean, I thought Crisis was a very interesting thing for them to tackle. I think there are things to mention about how they probably could have done it better, but at the end of the day, the thing that matters to me is that it was fun to watch, maybe not because of the actual story even as much, but because of all of the cameos I managed to squeeze in, and, it's fan service in, like, the simplest way, but I still quite liked it. I mean, as someone who, again, had been watching at the time, what was it, 8-9 years? I think it was 8 years, but the point is, it felt like a big thing. I mean, I would say it's bigger than Endgame. When Infinity War was the one that was the biggest crossover, and then Endgame was just a sequel. Interesting parallels, by the way. I might get into that later. But it had been winding down since then. And I think, I don't know the timeline exactly, but I think we first kind of knew the Arrowverse was ending when at the end of the second season of Superman and Lois, a character made an offhand remark that Superman is the only hero in this universe. Which was strange, right? Because it was meant to be set in the Arrowverse. I mean, they had a crossover with Batwoman plan and everything. So then the writers, immediately after the episode, were like, by the way, this is not set in the Arrowverse. And it almost sounded like they were describing it as if they never intended it to be, which can't be right since there was a planned crossover. I mean, maybe that would have involved traveling between realities. After all, the Arrowverse has had a multiverse for, I mean, in theory, its entire run. I mean, they didn't start exploring it until, like, Flash season 2 or whatever. I think it was from season 2. But that was the point, right? I think it was already announced at the time that The Flash was going to end after the 9th season. And so it's kind of weird, right? Because at least we knew The Flash was ending, right? They cancelled Batwoman and Legends without announcing in advance. And as a matter of fact, those shows clearly didn't really have an end. They just ended, right? There's a difference between, writing and ending and just not being renewed for another season. So at least The Flash had that, especially because it was, again, the last Arrowverse show. It would have been very sad if they just kind of ended it. Although, while the lesson was truly an ending for The Flash, I don't think it was necessarily for the Arrowverse at large. They did draw in other elements from the Arrowverse over the final season. I mean, they had the Dreamer episode, they had the one episode with Oliver Queen and John Diggle, and of course the entire Red Death arc was, in a way, also tie into Batwoman. And it's kind of weird, because I say the Arrowverse is over, right? But again, Superman and Lois should at least still take place in a parallel reality. There are a lot of elements from the Arrowverse that carry over, right? I mean, obviously, the casting of the two titular characters. The kids were first introduced, well, as infants, in Supergirl, I think, or might have been part of Crisis, that they could have been in any of the shows, but the point is, right, they were first introduced earlier, and I mean, they were cast later as, like, I was gonna say adult versions. I mean, they're supposed to be like 16, I think, but I mean, compared to infants. Point being, that show is still going, and it's really good. As a matter of fact, I guess I should have made sense earlier, but I like the Arrowverse quite a lot. I'm not saying I would recommend other people just go ahead and watch all of it, because part of it is that 2012 was a very different time. I mean, 2013 was too. Superhero shows just weren't as much of a thing. I don't know when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out. Again, right, something that I wanted to look up and then completely forgot to. And I will totally not do that right now. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. I don't know. DuckDuckGo, do your thing. Yeah, Wikipedia. Sure. A number of seasons, 7. Yes, thank you. 2013, right? So Arrow actually predates Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, obviously, Smallville, right? And there was a Batman show in the 60s. There was, I think, Wonder Woman, the Linda Carter one, that was also a TV show. Right, so live action superhero shows were a thing. But the MCU was sort of, in a way, the fucking hell. Marvel Cinematic Universe, there we go. When did Iron Man come out? I guess I could have just looked at that, huh? Okay, that's the in-universe timeline. I was like, no, it didn't start in the 30s. Okay, yeah, let's... Iron Man 2008 film. So, the MCU was definitely going, but it was just a couple movies, right? When did Avengers come out? Avengers... yeah, the Avengers Marvel Cinematic Universe? No, that is not... The Avengers, 2012, right? Same year that Arrow started, obviously. Arrow wasn't really a connected universe until about 2 years later when The Flash started airing, so... In a sense, but still, right? It's... You could be watching Arrow and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I mean, I was watching both of them, but that's pretty much it at that time. And so... The CW notoriously isn't always great. As a matter of fact, they're kind of known for making not very good shows, you know. A lot of unnecessary romance plots, a lot of characters learning the same lesson at least once per season, and it feels like there's not really that much development. Sometimes things just seem contrived. I mean, the CW is not known for great writing or great production values, and so, you know, it's probably not holding up that well. But at the time, it was special. Because again, right, there wasn't that much superhero stuff, and I don't know when I first got into comics, but the MCU was probably around, but I didn't get into comics because of the MCU. I'm not trying to sound like a hipster, but the fact of the matter is that I just like the superheroes, right? I was watching superhero cartoons, like, from an early age, and I got into the comics eventually. Not even as much because of the cartoons, although that probably was a factor, like having just a character recognition, right? The Spider-Man movies were even earlier than Iron Man. The X-Men movies, I definitely watched those, probably before I got into the comics. So, I had some general awareness of Marvel in particular, DC though, as well. And so, superhero adaptations are in a way more meaningful to me than to other people, because I already had a little bit of that background. And so, you know, everyone's like, oh, it's oversaturated, and yeah, there's a lot of it now, but it's just a very new thing. And so, I don't think you should necessarily go back and watch it, although, I mean, if you're interested, I'm not going to stop you. But yeah, no, it is still weird to see it come to an end. And the Superman Lois is actually generally really good. And since it isn't actually that much connected to the Arrowverse, you can just watch it. That one I would actually recommend. That one's actually genuinely pretty good. I think it's better written than most of the CW shows, and it also has better production quality. They got some money from... Okay, I don't remember exactly. It was either HBO Max or DC Universe before that merged into it, and now of course, HBO Max is just Max, because branding and mergers and whatnot. The point being, Superman Lois really good, and still ongoing, and sort of connected to the Arrowverse, because not only the two main characters were cast in the Arrowverse, but there was also other characters that showed up in minor capacities, most notably... is it most notable? Lois's sister, whose name I forget at the moment. But I feel like I should know this. Anyways, the point being, she was also in season 2, actually, played by some actress that played her in the Arrowverse, right? You had, once per season, you had a John Diggle appearance, right? Who was sort of the anchoring point of the Arrowverse after Arrow ended. Because he was, even though Arrow, the show that he was on, ended, he was still on various shows. He was doing guest appearances here and there. And arguably, especially after they stopped doing the big crossovers, partially because they got fewer shows, and partially because of COVID, he was sort of the thing that was actually making this whole thing a connected universe. So having him on Superman and Lois seems like it would suggest, again, that it's set in the same universe, but I guess it isn't. That was maybe an unnecessary rant, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to talk about here. I think it was just trying to commemorate the Arrowverse while also kind of talking about how it's kind of weird how it ended. Because again, right, it when you watch Crisis, it almost feels like it was all building towards it. Not just the Arrowverse, but like live action DC TV shows as a whole, right? They had a cameo from, what's his name, Burt Ward, the guy who played Robin on the 60s TV show. They had, spoilers, obviously. They had Lucifer, right? Played by Tom Ellis. That is his name, yeah. Is it? Fuck, why am I talking to myself now? Come on! I'm gonna look really dumb if that was wrong. And then, the Superman from Smallville, whose actor's name I'm actually forgetting right now. But the point is, Crisis was like this big thing, and it kind of felt a bit deflated afterwards. I don't think they had a big crossover since either. Tom Welling is the guy who played Superman. Anyways, the point that I was getting at is just like Endgame. It felt like everything was building towards this. Now, in the case of Endgame, everything had been building towards this for a while. And while Crisis had been hinted at before, I'm pretty sure most of what actually happened in Crisis was decided fairly shortly before it came out. Maybe around the time Elseworlds came out, like a year prior. But Flash vanishes in Crisis, and, the Reverse Flash is there, and it's like, well, actually, he wasn't. And also, it wasn't the Flash who vanished. So, the time that always constantly being in flux because of time travel shenanigans kind of gave them some freedom there. Also, of course, does mean there's not as much consistency in a way, but there's always an in-universe reason for it. I think it makes sense that Superman and Lois is separate. They were probably not going to have a huge amount of other Arrowverse characters show up there. It's kind of a shame to not get some of the Supergirl characters maybe showing up there, because that would have made sense, but at the same time, it was weird that it was set in the Arrowverse, because A, they barely acknowledged it. Again, right, John Diggle being there is like the main thing. And B, the Fortress looked different. The Fortress of Solitude, that is. And they also recast both Morgan Edge and General Sam Lane. The character recasting, people were like, oh yeah, Crisis did it, right? That's always the explanation. The problem is they showed the Fortress of Solitude on Supergirl after Crisis, so it was always somewhat inconsistent to be in the Arrowverse. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a parallel reality within that multiverse. I mean, I guess all DC shows are technically ever since Crisis. So that is that, and I'm gonna keep watching up on, even if it is disparate from the Arrowverse. Again, it's actually really good. It's kind of weird, right? Like, some Arrowverse shows were ending, right? We knew Black Lightning was coming to an end, Supergirl was coming to an end, and it felt like it was winding down. There weren't any new shows being announced. I mean, Justice U is supposed to happen, sort of. There's no sign that it's actually happening, but I think there was a pilot ordered at one point. I think if that does ever come to fruition, it's probably going to be set in the Superman and Lois universe, not in the Arrowverse. But right now, I'm leaning towards that's probably not happening at all. What's the comment? Right. So at some point they canceled, I think, Batwoman and Legends at the same time, and it was just the Flash left. I don't like how they unceremoniously canceled those. I mean, Batwoman was never very popular, but it was also getting better season over season. So it's difficult because if you start not that good, then you're probably not going to gain more of an audience, even if the show does get better. Legends was arguably the best Arrowverse show, now that Superman and Lois isn't in the Arrowverse anymore. Especially, I mean, again, right, it didn't have the greatest start, but it did get better. But, I mean, it was a very fun show. It wasn't the same way of good as Superman and Lois was, or is, I guess, which is just a good show, but like Legends of Tomorrow is just a fun show, and they didn't take themselves too seriously, at least later on, which is why it's so good then. It's almost a little bit of a comedy, but not quite. I mean, it's almost in the same way as The Orville is supposed to be a comedy show. It's like, yeah, they have jokes occasionally, but it's also just a Star Trek copy. I don't know. I think I've rambled on long enough about the Arrowverse and that whole thing. The MCU, I did want to mention that, right? It was all building towards Endgame, and then people are like, oh, Phase 4 sucks. It's like, okay, some things in Phase 4 were genuinely not that good, but I feel like a lot of people are just mad that the movies don't connect as tightly. And it's like, that's what Phase 1 was. You just don't like that they're like in a early building phase where they're introducing a lot of things that aren't connecting yet. I think people are very impatient with their media these days. So the MCU, I don't think it's that terrible. I mean, there were definitely some missteps. I think it's still doing okay, but also there's more content and less interest, so it's not a great combination. But I'm interested to see where that one's going as well. I'm just hopelessly into that superhero stuff. But that brings us to the next segment, which is the facts of the week. And my fact of the week, it's weird to go first. I mean, this entire thing is kind of weird, right? It feels so weird to me to just talk to a camera. I know it's kind of weird, right? I'm like a YouTuber or whatever. I mean, it's not like anyone's paying me for this, but I've been making YouTube videos for, 6 years now? Almost. And it still feels weird to just talk to a camera, because most of the time I've did it with someone else, right? And it's more like a conversation between people, rather than just talking to a camera. Although, I feel like I used to have more problems with this before than now. I feel like I'm doing okay with this. I mean, I've been rambling on for, 18 minutes now? So, yeah, I think I'm okay. My fact of the week is about highway hypnosis, also known as white line fever. It's an altered mental state in which a person can drive a car, truck, or other automobile. Yes, okay, yeah. Sure. Great distance responding to external events in the expected, safe, and correct manner with no recollection of having consciously done so. So yeah. A lot of us have probably experienced it. I found this both fascinating and in retrospect kind of terrifying when I first noticed it happening to me. When I drive somewhere that I'm like very used to driving, like I know the route, and I'd be like, I'm driving and I'm like, wait, I don't think I consciously paid attention to anything I was doing the last 20 minutes. How am I safely driving, right? Like, how am I not causing a crash when not paying attention? It's like, well, it's not that you're not paying attention, you're just not consciously paying attention, I guess. It's such a weird phenomenon to experience for those that haven't, but it seems to be harmless. But yeah, that is kind of, it's a weird thing, and when I heard there was like a name for it, I thought this was interesting to bring up as a fact of the week. Which brings us to our next segment already, which is Squirrel. I'm going to see if I can win Squirrel by myself. That is going to be interesting, and let's see. Hey, I'm actually fairly in frame. I'm going to scoot over a little bit so that I can see my screen better. And I'm gonna still do the thing where we start by light amplification simulated through the emission of radiation. Laser. I wasn't expecting to get 2 letters right. Second word is tonic. That's not a T. Tonic. Hey. Well, we've eliminated a ton of letters already. And I say we, because I'm so used to saying we. I've eliminated a ton of letters already. Okay, first row has an L. I don't know this for a fact, but SL can probably happen. It seems weird. Okay, first column has A and E. Not that useful. Fourth column has E and I, which is intriguing that we already have 2 letters for that. And of course, the last column has an R and maybe an L. What do I guess next is the question as per usual. We do not have any positive information, of course, for the third row or column because we haven't put anything in there yet. No S's for the row. And obviously we already have an S in the column, so we're not going to guess anything with an S in it at all. Maybe starting with an E or an A, although... Well, actually, no, that's not. I was going to say, although it can't be in the first row, but like, obviously there's already the S there anyways. So putting an E or an A there might make sense. You could put an I there or an R there, or not. I mean, I'm obviously tending towards R being there. E. One of those two could very likely be an E. So how about we start with A and put an E there? Something like this. Then the question, of course, becomes, what word has those letters? I was going to say aimed, test for M and D, but the I is a little awkward because it can't go there. Okay, wait. I was gonna say like something like adhere would be great, but like we're kind of running out of letters, you know. I'm trying to think about how I can get a vowel in 4th position and in 1st, because that means that there's either a 2-vowel cluster somewhere in there, or there's 2 consecutive consonants between those. That's not really that surprising of a thing to notice, but it is kind of looking at how you can make that happen, right? Because there are not that many consonants that actually go together, but you can also have a syllable break, and then any 2 consonants can go together, right? If I go add something, I mean, obviously, it still would have to exist, but add, right, like those that are actually prefixes, I can then have any vowel follow. Right, like, I was gonna say DJ doesn't happen, but like it does, doesn't it? Actually, does it? Because like adjunct, right? Like adjacent. I could have just said adjacent. Point being, those other combinations that might be odd otherwise make perfect sense here. It is interesting to know that I feel like I can explain myself a bit better. I mean, I do try to do that when Sir gets here too, but I'm also not trying to interrupt his thinking too much. And every now and again, I do try to remind myself that I should maybe let Sergey speak too. Or like acclimate would be great, but I mean, it's way too long, and I want an E rather than an I, although I would maybe work too in that spot. Austere is too long again, but like that would also be interesting. I mean, I haven't tried you yet. But like, okay, actually, austere would actually not even have the E in that spot. But is there anything here with like augment, augur? Augur would fit. But augur is always spelled like this, right? It's not like that. It can be like that. Fair enough. Also, apparently, is that sugar? Is that saying sugar? No G's. Wait, no G's. It literally tried the G there. Huh. Sewer. That's spelled differently. Surer. That's not allowed. Super. Speaking of superheroes, super. Hey, remember the Arrowverse? It's all coming together. Suzer, Suder, Sufer, Suher, Suger, Suker, Suler, Suyer, Sire, Suxer, Sucker, Suker, Sucre, Suver, Suber, Sumer. I think it's a P. Okay, this also needs an E. A-E like in 8. Wait, it's not like, wait. It seems unlikely. I'm putting the E there. And it can't be AI or AU. It's probably not AO. I think it's probably a consonant. S R. Obviously, I guess N and, well, not no N's in the entire grid, but D would still work in some theoretical sense, would add something, but something that's it. So it's probably something that has the consonants actually being in the same syllable. Like ARP seems imaginable. ASP definitely is. I mean, ASP is literally a type of snake, I think. Aspire. Aspie? Is that in the Square Dictionary? And is it spelled the way I think? Anyway, so I'm actually tentatively going to remove that R, even though I do still think it might be there because of how the column is starting to look, but the row has one now, so that might have been a good approach. We have self-contested any M's, and we want a word containing an E and an I. I'm thinking double E is not the greatest. E-R-E-R. Rarer. 3 R's. I don't know. We'll see. So, do I want to test something ending in E? Sure, why not? It also needs to contain an I. Does the first row say basil? And is basil spelled the way I think it is? It's not hazel. That's spelled differently. I think that works, right? Like basil, like the herb, the herb. That's what they're called. His name isn't Herbert. And then put like an E there tentatively, and then go like imagine. It's way too long, but imagine, not quite. Image. Speaking of, no G's, and I obviously hate the A there. As a matter of fact, I don't particularly like any vowel right there, which brings up the same problem as before. Oh god, it's actually worse because it either ends in a double vowel or the E is wrong where I put it. Now obviously putting an E there seems tempting. But double E's, while they do happen, are probably not the most common thing in the world. They're actually more common than you'd probably think because it's a French thing. But anyways, if I... Do we have any positive information about where we want a U to be? No, we only have negative. So I could actually... Oh no, we literally have a U. I was going to say I could try unite. That seems like it... No T's, okay. I mean, it was a bit of a stretch either way, but... Innate, no N's. Also, does have the A where I didn't particularly love it, but at this point I might be able to accept that if it was only that. Irate. Still not easy. In indie. Indie is an independent. Nah, the I can't go there, but how much do I care? I mean, indie as an independent could technically fit. Oh, right, no ends. I mean, I already didn't like that the I is not great, but so, no ends. Impy with IE or double E, no. Impy with a Y might actually work, but that's too short, obviously. Im. 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 I. Like an irregular. Is it? I don't know. Ill. Like an illegal. Or. or illegality, yeah, great. Is there actually not illegitimate? Okay, there are other ones. Is it just the in of words to start with L? Like if it's legal or legit, it's illegal and illegitimate? Ill. I mean, that case would have to have double L's if that is the case. In which case, I double L X E, right? Like it's like ilpa, ill, like that ill me, like that doesn't make sense. Itchy with an E. Inf. Im. I. It. I'm almost tempted to just try something that doesn't technically work just to see if it gets me any letters. But I don't like wasting spots, right? So I'm tempted to go something like irate or image or whatever I said before. The ones that don't really work. I mean, image is probably a better one in that case, but not. Is there another one that works like that? Immore. Imare. Imaze. That sounds like the new Apple product that you will get lost in. Imape. No. Imaze. I made Imaze. I made, yeah, that's two words. Image. Image. I make. Email. Email. Yeah, sounds like email, but that's different. I think. I mean, it is different. The question is, this is also spelled very differently. Email, but anyways, it makes, which is literally what it says there. Imace. We need a C somewhere. Imave. Imam. Imam. That's without the E at the end, right? If that's a word, I'll take it. I wasn't banking on it. Damn. You know what? I'm gonna try something else. I'm gonna try determining where the remaining letters go. That we have positive information for. E there, E there. Both seem equally plausible. E something rare. I'm putting it there. Beast. No T's. Beats has the same problem. Beef. That's spelled differently. Beep. Double E. Bead. Beads. Searer. Sirer. Sorer. No. Surer. Nope, not allowed. Searer? Searer. To sear is double E, right? That doesn't... Or EA? Either way, it's two letters. A sirer is someone who sires. But that's not allowed. Sorer is someone is being more sore, which is also not allowed. And surer is being more sure, which is also not allowed. So I guess Sarah it is? I don't know. That doesn't... It doesn't bode well if I feel like I'm just making up words at this point. How has this helped me? I guess I was hoping I could do the Sudoku thing where, like, I kind of... Solving this column then gives me, like, another hint for this row, so I can solve this row, and then I can solve that column, and I can solve this row, and then... It's not happening. It is something that we still need to see somewhere, like I said, and it can't be in the last row or column, or a second row or column, for that matter. Which is somewhat limited. Especially now. I guess that is what I got out of this, right? Where this can't have it, this can't have it, this doesn't look like it was going to have it, which I guess leaves it right there. Which, that is exactly where I would have wanted a letter. If anything, this is probably just making me less certain of this stupid guess. Hearer? Hearer. Maybe I was wrong about one or two of these letters. Right? Maybe this is not all. Although hirer, I don't know, and someone who hires, no, it doesn't. Hairer, someone who hairs? I mean, I know of a hair, I don't know of how to hair. I wonder. No, I was gonna. Could it be cream? That's a stretch, right? It's also not the English way of cream, it's the French one. Crème. But, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. There are plenty of creams or sauces or whatever in English that I think also use the, crème brûlée. That's not even that's more of a cream than a sauce. But like the, the sauce was actually a sauce. But they all spell differently. I think. Are they? The point being crème, like in crème brûlée, is probably a legal word in this. I mean, the question is then what I do with L, which is more just a guess. Something, EE something, which, maybe not. Why did I guess this in the first place? You know what? Let's just guess crème, because I think it's technically legal. It tests for an M. It tests for the C right there. It tests for more things on R's. and it has some E's. I can't hate this. I mean, obviously one of the E guesses. Well, just so the column is bad, but the row is actually fine. So yeah, creme was, as I said, a legal word. And yes, there is double E in there. Which makes you think it's there. But it can't be creed. But then the R would have to be there if the E is there. In which case, this is what? Cheer? I mean, that works. The other option would have been to go R-E, so it would have been seer or C something Yeah, I think I like cheer here. So I got progress out of this, which is all I wanted, really. Also, we now know that the... Do we? Wait. I was going to say we know that the column only has one E. Well, we know that this column only has one E, and we think it's there. That is useful. Also, that means that the R is probably... Unless it's there, it's... Double R is possible. As a matter of fact, it's even possible with the H there. Horror, harrow, but all of those are too long. Which makes me tempted to say it's this one. Which makes this one what? Opper? Arper? Asper? Apper? Asper? It doesn't sound right. Apper, afper, asper, ajper, acper. Alper, ape, exper, avper, apper. No M's, by the way. What if that P is wrong, though? I've kind of had that there for a while, and I've never quite tried to justify it being there. I mean, obviously, right? Like, what else would it be? Surer works, but we already can't have an R in that row. Super works. Studio. Sufer. Can't be sugar. Sire, suxer. Unless it's sucre. Like French sucre, but with the ER reversed. Which I mean, there's sucrose, right? There's, well, sweet is saccharin, not sucrin. This is imaginable. Saccharin spells CK, right? But then, what does this make about this, right? Like, does it become ochre? I mean, acre obviously is in my head right now, but that's just the one ACRE, right? There's nothing more to it. Archer? I mean, someone who arcs, but I think if it's that, then it's always ER, even British English, right? Asker, Ocker, Ecker, Epker, Asker, Edker, Afker, Ecker, Edger, Ecker, Elser? Like ulcer, but with an A? Oh boy. I guess it's also the very sexy LH combination in this row, so. Acre, Exker, fucking hell. Now I have it saying sucre instead of super, and I don't even know if that's a word. Wait. Why is this E there? Okay, this one needs an E. It could not be there. It could be there. If there's an E there and there, that there can literally not be an R there. Wait. Oh, okay, fucking hell. This row needs an R. It cannot go in the first position. Cannot go in the second. Cannot go in the third. Could go here, but then cheer is wrong. Or it could go here, and we do in fact have double R, which I don't love. Actually, wait, the E had to be there. Or there. Okay, getting rid of our assumptions again. This seems wrong. It feels like the E would need to be there. If the E is there, R can't go anywhere else but there. And this R can't go anywhere else but there. And this one is cheer. Is there a way of just saying hero without the W? Or like horror adjacent? Like it feels like they're trying to once again force words onto me that I don't know. But that usually doesn't happen to that degree. Oftentimes I'm just like have some logic mistake somewhere. I would love to test out the beach, which I guess means an H would be a good guess. Wait, actually, what do I know? We need an E in there. It can't be in first. This E is actually already fixed. I mean, I guess the kicker would be if the I up there is wrong and if it isn't Basil. In which case the I goes there, I guess, and it's something ear. And this one becomes something pi or something A P. Both those sounds are great. Okay, so the E cannot be in last position for the column. If the R is correct and the L is correct, which is a bit of a, I'm guessing then, the E either goes there, which sounds plausible enough, or there. Wait, it can't be there. Or there, which seems imaginable. But then what goes here? Because it can't be double E. Wait, it could be double E. So I just put Lears. That seems like such a bad guess. Should I just put like something like, I was gonna say Stern, that's bad too. I don't care anymore. Yeah, okay, so it was double E. The S was wrong, which is kind of obvious. I mean, Leary, I guess? Wait, Leary? With a Y? Harry? Like the name? Okay, well, we know the. I think Beach is still a better guess. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. A. I need H-A. It cannot be hurry, which would be great. Wait, it could be something else like Leary. Leary with an E? That doesn't make sense, no. It's literally not allowed. Learp, Leard, Learf, Learg, Learl, Leary, Lyrx, Learb. Pretty sure it's a Y. And obviously, this one, H something RR, has to have a vowel. And it can't be U, can't be I, can't be E, and it can't be O. Which leaves us with A. Okay, what in the world is E something U something E? I think that's the big thing to find out right now, because then it's pretty much done. Allude. L is legal. L is legal in this row and column. D. We haven't even tried yet. Allude. I'm really smart sometimes. When I'm not being really stupid. Okay, basil seems like a fixed thing anyways. Super seems like something I could guess if I wanted to, but doesn't mean like we're giving that much information. ID something ER. E is fixed now. Clear? Clear would have to have EA. Queer? It's not a word, is it? Queer with CW, which is definitely a word. I don't like the H there. Because AL something HA? Like, what? Aloha. It's not even allowed. I'm missing 2 letters. At least in theory. I mean, some of this might be wrong, but like, in theory, I'm supposed to have everything but 2 letters. How can this still be that hard? Okay, the problem is I don't get anything out of guessing super, right? Like, I literally already know how that row that I'm currently in feels about S, no S's, U, no U's, R, no R's, right? And E, we already have it. Right? So it's like, I'm not getting any information out of it besides the P. So I might as well guess any word with a P in it. Ample. Ample? Idler. Elmha? I mean, ample is definitely a good word, right? Like, there's no M's in the entire grid, which I should have known. Idler, someone who idles. Harry, like the guy. And apple and alpha. The first letter of the Greek alphabet. But Harry, as in having a lot of hair, you're a wizard, Harry. You're a Harry Wizard Hagrid. Basil, allude, apple, cheer, Harry, beach, alpha, super, idler, Leary. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to do the quick Google of define Harry. Define Harry, please. Transitive verb, disturb, distress, or exhaust by repeated demands of criticism. Harass. To harry someone. I think I have actually heard that before, but it seems fairly obscure. Make out there in the end. It took me longer than I wanted to, but you know, it's just life and stuff. Well, I think I've still only been going close to an hour, and it's time for the second topic. Now, since discussion questions are something very common in here, I figured I would do the would you rathers. Since I don't need to talk to someone if someone else can write prompts for me to respond to. Will you press the button? I said would you rather, didn't I? Yeah, I tried that. The website wasn't loading for me. I don't know why that is. You gain the ability to phase through any solid object at will. Nothing can follow you. But nothing can follow you. Your clothes and anything you are holding will still collide with the objects, forcing you to phase through them as well. This is an interesting one because fictional portrayals of these sort of things have always fascinated me. Right? Superpowers. Because I feel like we often don't consider the implications. Am I making myself intangible? Am I phasing through everything? Right? You said I can't bring things with me because they still collide, right? That makes sense. Force you to phase through them as well. Okay, sure. So can I selectively just phase through certain things? So, like, because if I'm just making myself intangible, then I'm not just phasing through the wall, I'm also phasing through the ground because gravity is a thing. That's something I've always wondered about, right? Like, wouldn't phasing just suck you to the center of the earth? A similar thing where, like, the time-stopping power is always a little weird to me because those don't really make too much sense. Unless you... Like, if you have, like, the stopping time in a certain radius, that doesn't make sense. If you stop time in general, that's just going super fast. As far as the actual question is concerned, will I press the button? I mean, yes. You're giving me a power that has a limitation. I can literally just take the power. All hail naked walk through walls. Okay. The point being, like, I have this power now, right? I could literally never use it for the rest of my life, and obviously be no worse off. And in a pinch, I can always just run through walls, right? Like, oh, I'm in a dangerous situation. Well, it sucks to lose my clothes, but at least I'm out of there, right? Like, there's no downside. I mean, this is a limitation. People make the mistake all the time when they write those will you press a button question where the downside is actually just a limitation on the thing that they're giving you. But giving me something that I didn't previously have, that has a tangible positive impact, with a limitation attached, there's never a reason to say no. Right? So, why 41% of people said no, I haven't the faintest idea. You can go into any video game you want, but you become a meme on the internet. Well, how do you define going into... I'm assuming you mean into the world of a video game. I mean, going into Tetris will be weird. I mean, obviously, you know, like being able to live in a video game setting is definitely an interesting power. Especially, obviously, if I can go out again. That is the real question here. But assuming that, you know, the new Jumanji, when it gets stuck into a video game, that's not exactly great if you can't get out. If I can get in and out of at will, I will take this, right? Being a meme isn't that much of a downside. Oh, right. The comment suggests someone might become a specific meme. You become the visible embodiment of death. You can kill anyone you want with no consequences. But everything and anything you touch will die. I will not. That's just Rogue from the X-Men films, right? I mean, obviously, Rogue's power in the comics, and I think also in the... I don't know if it was actually in the movies, but in the comics at least, to absorb powers, and that happens to also hurt people. Yeah, most people didn't. The thing is that being able to kill people without consequence is not that desirable of a power, actually, right? Because murder is wrong. You have the ability to read anyone's mind, but everyone knows you have the ability to. See, this one's interesting. Because the downside is actually untenable, never mind. So, first of all, being able to read anyone's mind is one of those few powers that I'm tempted to say no to, even if there was no downside. Because the temptation to use it is there. And you might not actually want to know what people think. So, that's why that is not a good power. I would like to think that I have enough self-control to just not use it. Everyone knows you can do it is a pretty major downside. And first I thought, okay, you know, people are constantly going to be like, hey, read that guy's mind. Hey, what I'm thinking, right? Like, hey, I actually speak German. Saying something in German, right? Like, anytime someone knows you can do something, they will want you to demonstrate it, oftentimes in a very meaningless and trivial way. Hey, what number am I thinking of? It's like, fuck off. Everyone knows you have the ability to. What are the odds that some military or intelligence service is going to try to recruit me to do spying stuff for them? And then the question is, do I actually have the option of saying no? Or, they'll dissect me in the lab or whatever. Like, that's also not great. Being a scientific curiosity as a human being is generally not great because of, like, the realistic consequences. You could fly, but only at a snail's pace. There's no downside. Snails can fly fast when I throw them. Okay. No, seriously, like, there's no downside, right? Oh, you can fly, but only very slowly. It's still better than you can't fly. You can have sex with anyone you want at any time. The morals of it. But your parents must be watching. I mean, I was gonna say no anyways, but like, what the fuck? Right, consent is the thing. Right? Did I not press it? Is it just not loading? What the fuck? Hello? Huh. Home? Okay, so that's broken, we're done. No, but like, you can have sex with someone you want. It's like, yeah, but do they want to? Like, what? I usually take those questions to mean that there's some sort of magic thing that makes them want to, maybe? That's still better than preventing them from being able to say no, which is like, blah. But even changing someone's willingness to do so through magical means still doesn't seem like consent, right? Like, oh, I just magically made it so you want to? Still doesn't seem like they actually initially wanted to. That is very icky to me. And I mean, obviously the parents watching, I think, is not making it any better. It's almost interesting when the power itself is something you would want to deny, but when it's power with downside, I mean, in this case, the question, I guess, is, I guess you would never be able to have sex without your parents watching, which, even if we take the first thing as a power and not consider the implications of it, would still be a downside. Even, right, with like people that you could get with anyways. But yeah, no, that was a weird one. Which brings us to the final segment of this show, the songs of the week. JJ, what's your song of the week? Oh god. My song of the week is Remember Yesterday by Hammerfall. It occurs to me that I'm not reacting much because I'm not actually wearing headphones and I couldn't hear that. But, I mean, I literally just put together the segment right before I started recording, so, like, I know what's in there. I like that song. I like Hammerfall in general. And I noticed an interesting fact where I always save the album cover art for in case I have another song from the album. And I actually didn't have this one. I think I now have, like, 6 different albums that I used for, like, clips for the podcast before of Hammerfall. So there's definitely a lot of diversity in Hammerfall songs that I picked. That's just an interesting factoid. I like a song. I don't think I have to justify it. And that brings this episode of the Trash Talk Podcast to a close. If you liked what you saw, give it a like. Don't worry. Guests will be back next week, hopefully. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. If you have something to say, leave a comment below or join Discord. Every link is in the description below. Yeah, that's it.